Back to the channel, my name's Adam Smith, and inside this game showcase, I'm excited to be checking out Trudvang Legends, coming from CMON Games. Inside of this video, I'll be focusing on the setup. I'll take you through all the instructions of how to get the game off your shelf and to the table, as well as the solo-specific rules, and then stay tuned to the channel as we dive into solo gameplay together, and I'll show you how this one flows and operates. For those that are unfamiliar with the game, Trudvang Legends is steeped in epic Nordic and Celtic myths and sagas. It places players in the roles of legendary heroes who make their mark on a dynamic, ever-changing fantasy world. The game is based on a Swedish RPG, Trudvang Chronicles, thrusting players into a cycle of epic sagas in which their achievements change not only the world itself, but the very rules by which gods, peoples, and nature interact. During the game, you will quest through an interwoven series of adventure books, and the results of your choices will echo throughout history, changing the relationships between sovereign nations, impacting kings, creating new waygates, or even locking or unlocking parts of the map. The changes that are experienced in Trudvang Legends manifest physically as parts of the board actually change, making the actions of previous hero generations affect future sagas. However, the changes are only as permanent as long as history remembers them, which makes the game endlessly replayable, and even playing the same adventure book repeatedly will have a completely different feeling because the world itself has changed. Heroes following a path of destiny will even become historical fixtures as they become kings, guildmasters, or even gods. Now, with a better understanding of what Trudvang Legends is all about, let's head into the setup. We're going to go through all steps of setup. We're going to start with the regular setup instructions found at the front section of the rulebook. It's worth mentioning the solo-specific setup instructions are further into the rulebook, and I'll touch on these in just a moment. But as you go through the regular setup instructions, you will see mentions of where you need to reference the solo instructions, but you'll see this all visually as we go through it right now. You'll find all the regular steps of setup on page number 9 of the rulebook, and you'll also see a first adventure section, so if you're playing your very first adventure, you're definitely recommended to follow these instructions as well. For those that are curious, on page 33 of the rulebook, you'll find the solo game section. It has 6 steps to set up your hired hand. So going into a solo play, you'll have your main character you're controlling, and you'll have a hired hand which is set up and used to aid you in your journey across the land. The first step of basic setup is to place the map board in the center of the table. You'll also see there's a number of sleeved positions in different regions all over the board. These are empty at this time. Step number 2 is to find your adventure board and place it to the right or to the left of the main map board. I placed mine to the left. You'll see on the adventure board 2 major columns. On the far right-hand side, you have phases. These run from 1 to 6 down through the column. You're only seeing 3 of them right now, but there's 3 more below off screen. Then to the left, you have a number of story positions. There are 6 rows of these with 2 in each row, so a total of 12 positions for stories. Here you can see the rest of the phase positions running 1 all the way down to 6. Steps 3 and 4 of setup are blended together. You'll need the point of interest board, which is shown right here. There should not be a sheet in it at this time, especially for your first adventure. So at this point, you'll find all the adventure sheets. And there are a number of these in the core box experience, but you're not going to want to take a look at any of these sheets while you slide them into the points of interest, as you're supposed to have them covered from the beginning of the adventure, and of course that would spoil anything that you might find as you go through the adventure. So the best thing to do is to grab the sheet based on the top of the page, which will show the appropriate sheet number you're looking for, or the title of the adventure. In the case of your very first adventure, it's going to be adventure sheet C1, called The Child of Light. Now do your best to place the unlocked adventure sheet that you've selected inside of the point of interest board. In this case, there's only one that's unlocked, and it's the one I just mentioned moments ago. We've slid it in, and the only thing you should see is just these letters coming through the open spaces, and all the doors which sit underneath of each of the letters should all remain closed. Now, along with the point of interest board, you'll have point of interest tokens, 12 of them, to match up with the letters you can see here. So for example, here is D. Now, if you have the deluxe components, they'll look a little different. The deluxe points of interest look like this, and they'll certainly pop off of the map more than the tokens do, but the trade-off is that the letter is a bit smaller. Now I've gone ahead and I've placed all the deluxe markers on each of the corresponding spots, but this is not part of the setup at all. Normally these would sit off to the side, as well as the tokens. If you're using just the tokens because you don't have these deluxe ones, they'd sit off to the side, but there's nothing stopping you from placing them like this. It makes it easier when you have to reveal one of the windows and you need to place a point of interest. You'll have that deluxe component ready to go. Moving on to the next step, we need to take the story cards along with their paper tray and place it near the points of interest board. It's important to remember that the story cards are not shuffled. They begin with CS001, and the final card of that story deck should be CS171, and again, this is just focus on the base game only. Next, you're instructed to place enemy figures nearby. I'm going to keep them off the game table and inside the box and pull them out as I need them. Now it's time to choose your main character. From the core box, there are 6 characters to choose from, and each of them represents one of the classes in the game. You'll see the class icons in the top left-hand corner of each of the cards. On the top right-hand corner, you'll see the HP for that character. You'll see the starting runes and how they're broken down across the different elements, and we'll go through these right now. So the very first one here is the Bard, then we have a Vintner Weaver, then we have a Dim Walker, then a Warrior, a Ranger, and finally, a Rogue. I'm going to go with Vulgar. I really like his artwork. You can see the breakdown of his runes below. He's got HP of 11. Now, Warrior, as defined in the game, is strong and powerful, fierce and supernatural berserkers that are respected and feared. Warriors exceed in strength tests and at times can challenge NPC enemies to duels, protecting the other heroes. Once we know the character we want to play, we'll go ahead and grab a dashboard and place it underneath the main board. With the hero card in place, we're now going to find a miniature that represents our hero. Here's a look at the miniature that represents my main character, and now with this in hand, we're going to find a colored base. We can select any color we wish. I'm choosing purple, and then make sure the rune bag you find matches the same color. With the base attached to the miniature, we're now going to reference the card we placed on our dashboard for all the runes and find exactly those runes to place inside our rune bag. Vulgar's breakdown for his runes is going to be 1 for water, 2 for wind, 3 for earth, 4 for fire, and finally 5 for dark. In my case, I have the deluxe tokens, so my runes look a little bit different than the cardboard tokens found in the core box. However, if you want to upgrade your cardboard tokens to something more fancy, you could use gems, and gems would represent these runes really well when you pick up some green, blue, red, gray, and black, and you've got those all covered. There is a wild as well, but none of those go into the bag from the very beginning. The only ones you get are the ones specified right on your character's card, so these ones, based on their counts for each type, are all headed inside the rune bag. Now find the health marker and mark on your health and chronicles track, the red track across the top here, the character's health, which is 11. Now you'll place 1 chronicle points marker in the 0 slot of the health and chronicles track, so it's going to go right here. Now every character's deck comes with a starting item. You'll find that easily by the back of the card stating starting item, and you flip it over to the opposite side, face up, and you're going to place it off to the left in the item slot. With that all set, it now tells us to head to page 33 to check out the solo specific setup rules. Now on page 33 of the solo setup rules, it's telling us now to pick our hired hand we're going to set up. We have choices between the other 5 that we haven't selected to this point. I'm going to go ahead with this one right here. As Ladena is coming in as a hired hand, her setup's going to be different than our main character. Now that we know who our hired hand is, we're going to go ahead and grab the miniature representing that character, which I've already done. I've also placed a colored base on it, but you do not have to do this. It's not specified by the setup to do it. The only reason I did is because it's a friendly and just wanted to highlight that when things get crazy on the game board. Now find your 4 level 1 feat cards. You'll know you have the right ones if they are level 1 up in the very top, and they also have this icon down in the very bottom right hand corner. And so as long as you've got this icon as well as level 1s only, then you're going to have the right 4 cards. And the other thing to make note of is the fact that you'll see at the very bottom here, these cards comprise of 2 cards which are for the hero and 2 which are for the class. Now, step number 1 of solo setup can be dismissed at this point because in our very first adventure, we're not doing any upgrades, but as you progress further in, you will have the opportunity to upgrade your hired hand's feat cards, and if you want to find information on that, you'll find it in step 4 on page 33. At this point, we place the 4 feat cards in a row, and we're going to allocate runes to each of them. You'll grab the runes you need from the available pool of runes that you have, and whenever you're placing them on the cards, you'll notice there's 2 slots on each of these cards. Some of them have a mixture of different types inside of the same position. So what you have to look out for is what's going on in the other position. In this case, it would be wind, so you wouldn't be able to choose wind again for the second position. It'd have to be fire. Coming over here, if you selected water first, well, it'd have to be wind. If you chose wind first, it'd have to be water. And you continue with that logic all the way through. That's going to do it for the feat cards. All the runes are in place. We're now going to go ahead and find the starting item, which is for this character, and we're going to add it to our main character. Here's a starting item for the Dimwalker, which is our hired hand. We'll flip it over, and we've received the Dimwalker's text. This item card is now stashed underneath, face up, of the item we already have for our main character. Now, a special mention in the solo setup is from the second adventure onwards, which doesn't apply right now. You're going to take half of the items and titles, rounding up, and place them in their respective slots on the hero dashboard. The remainder of the items and titles are set to the side of the dashboard in a face-up deck in case the adventure checks their presence. So there's going to be a difference in how things are set up once you get to the second adventure onwards. But for this very first one, it's very simple. At this point for the first adventure, the rest of the feat cards for the hired hand can just be placed in deck off to the side. The next step of setup is to find the event deck and give it a good shuffle and place it near the map board. Now find the enemy attack deck, give this a shuffle and place it close to where the event deck is next to the map board. Next, find these 4 feat cards which have this keyword on all of them, and once you have all 4 of them, give them a shuffle and then place them in front of the story cards in the tray up there. Now we're going to use some steps of setup that are specific to the very first adventure. So you'll take your feat deck that you have for your main character in this case, and you're going to break it into 3 separate decks. The very first one is going to be comprised of just level 1 cards. So inside you'll only find cards that have the level 1 on it. Give it a shuffle, and place it in the feat deck slot on your dashboard. The next deck is going to be comprised of level 2 cards as well as 2 ultimate cards. And the 2 ultimate cards from your deck are going to be placed on the bottom. So you're going to see a number of level 2s here all the way through. But the ultimate cards that I've included in this deck are specifically placed on the bottom of the deck. So when it's flipped over, it's like this. That deck's going to go into the feats upgrade section of your dashboard. Last but not least, you'll have a deck of legendary feat cards, which you can just place off to the side. They'll just have legendary inside this deck. Now the game comes with 6 starting phase cards. They look like this on the back, but the only ones you're going to need for your first adventure are going to be 2, 3, and 4. When all said and done, phase 2 should be travel, phase 3 is engage, and phase 4 is explore. Now find the 2 starting rules, number 1 and 2. You're going to place them face up in the top 2 slots where the stories reside. For your first adventure, that's all that's necessary on the adventure board. The 2 cards placed in the story section are defeat and level up. The final step of your first adventure setup is to find these 4 starting locations, and on page 9 of the rulebook, it'll tell you exactly which regions are going to get these 4 cards. And just like that, we got the starting locations in 4 different regions: Sylvan, Manjord, Dranvelt, and way up there in the top right, Wildland. Now let's complete the finishing touches of the basic setup. At this point, we're going to find the phase marker and place it on the first occupied sleeve on the phases area of the adventure board. So in this case, that'll be the second phase. Now get all your tokens organized and to the table. For me, I'm using game trays to make things easy. These are not included in the game whatsoever. Now the furthest left tray that's in red tokens is all health, different denominations of 1, 5, and 10. I'll put those in that tray. The top right-hand tray has blue and red tokens mixed in one compartment. Those are negative and positive status tokens. Below that in the same tray are exclamation points, which are known as threat tokens. These are going to basically add more threats into a particular region on top of whatever miniature of the enemy's already there. So it's going to basically enhance the insanity. And then below that in the final tray here, we have a number of conditional type tokens, things like the cleared and blocked tokens, generic tokens, XP tokens. These are all organized. The final tokens to go over are the personality tokens right here. These are double-sided tokens in a stack. Then you have the elite tokens just above that. Then the NPC tokens. These right here are quest tokens in numerical order, 1 through 6. And then you have the leader token. And finally, you have the party token. The party token is used on adventure maps. That's a component I haven't shown you yet. You'll run into those. Essentially, it's going to be a deeper dive look at an adventure that your party's traversing through than the typical region-based map. map, and you'll use your party marker to show where you're at on that adventure map as you go through it. At this point, the leader token is assigned to one of the characters in the game, but as I'm playing solo, my main character is going to be the leader. The final step of basic setup that also wraps up the entirety of the setup of Trudvang Legends for your first adventure is to head into the Book of Sagas and find the adventure that you're going on based on what you slid in to your points of interest board. So for me, it's the Child of Light. The Child of Light adventure has an introduction, and it states, "Travelers, welcome to Trudvang, a vast land of heroic sagas and epic adventures. Like many sagas, this one begins in the golden light of autumn as you sit about the fire drinking honeyed mead and sharing tales with your fellow travelers. Your respite is interrupted by a hurried courier, happy to have found you so quickly. The courier presents a letter from your mentor, the ancient elf Kurjanti, who trained you and so many others in your youth. He urges you to hasten to his tower in Ijinland. You've not heard from him in a good while, but he is ancient and wise, and he would not seek you over trifling matters. In the pre-dawn light, you take the road, itself beset with unusual perils, yet your hearts are uneasy for different reasons altogether." Now, there's a number of steps we have to do here. The first one is to take adventure sheet C1 and place it inside the point of interest board. We've already done this. Place all heroes into a specific region, which I'm going to do right now. Our party begins in Ijland. We're now told to reveal enemy cards CS100, a Draugr, CS101, a Forest Troll, and CS102, a Garm. Here's a look at the cards for each of the enemies that I just drew from the story deck. I'm going to place them near where the characters are. I'm being told to place 2 Forest Trolls in Dranbelt, 2 Draugrs are going to show up in the Troll Ridge Mountains, and 2 in the Wildland. Things are looking a little more action-packed up in the northeast. That's going to do it for placing the enemies. It now tells us to go to Point of Interest A and reveal it. So that's going to be right here. Let's go ahead and remove the point of interest A in case we need it or don't need it, depending on what we see here. And we found a tower. And it says here, the tower of this elf, our previous mentor, your old mentor, you receive a message from him requesting your urgent presence. It says, interact to read entry C1001. Now for clarity, a green point of interest is a regular point of interest. So when you see one of these, it typically has a region identified. You need to place the point of interest marker in that region and then take an explore action when you get there in order to then go to the entry down below. You could potentially also find a red point of interest, which is an enemy related point of interest. So in this case, we have a point of interest, being that it's our very first adventure, right in the exact same spot we started the game in. Thanks so much for watching. That's going to wrap up the How to Set Up video for Trudvang Legends from CMON Games. Stay tuned to the channel as we dive into gameplay together, and I'll show you exactly how this thing flows and operates from a solo perspective. Looking forward to it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. Would love to hear from you. And as always, keep on rolling solo.